Welcome back to A Story to Tell from the campus of Dixie State University. My name is Ronnow. We're talking to Terrence White,
Hi,
who
Lane.
in his misspent youth was known as Terry White.
That's correct.
Tell me about that.
I grew up, I didn't even know my name was Terrence until I was probably 5 or 6. And so I tell people, if you've known me for the last 30 years or lived in Beaver ever, then you can call me Terry, but beyond that, I'm Terrence. So yeah, that's I grew up in Beaver, and actually all of southern Utah, a little bit of everywhere. So, but my mom and dad live in Beaver, and
They still live there?
they still are there, and we visit there frequently. So
Tell me about them, your parents.
my parents, David and Carolyn White, good people. I can't imagine better parents than those that I have. They both grew up in Beaver. I grew up knowing my grandparents, aunts and uncles. It's a close family, which is a blessing in my life to know my grandparents. I know my great-grandparents, some of them, and you know, we're from pioneer heritage, and my family settled there, so it's part of my person, who I am, being from Beaver. But shortly after I was born, I'm the second of 7, so shortly after I was born, Mom and Dad decided to move to Richfield. So I've spent the first 7 years of my life in Richfield, and then we moved out to Monroe after that for another several years. We did a short stint in Cedar City, and then we ended up in Beaver by the time I was 12, and then I finished my growing up years there. So
You went to high school in Beaver?
went to high school in Beaver. It was the old Beaver High School. I don't know if you remember that building on Main Street.
With the B on it?
Yeah, I was there all my high school years, and it was torn down maybe a few years after I graduated.
When did you graduate?
1989, and went to BYU for my first year after high school, my first couple of semesters of school, and then went on a mission.
Where did you go on your mission?
I went to the Philippines. Interestingly enough, I was called on a non-English speaking, or an English-speaking mission, but quickly learned that that's not the way things work in the Philippines.
So it was supposed to be an English-speaking mission
Correct.
in the Philippines.
That's right. So I was only in the training center for 3 weeks, or less than 3 weeks. So we learned how to say good morning, I think, in Tagalog, and then they shipped us over there and threw us in, and for that first 6 months was a real trial. But I got through it, and I'm a better.
Did you learn to speak Philippine?
Yes, I did. The native language, or they call the main language over there, is Tagalog. But they have something like 80 dialects that really are very distinct languages. So depending on where you end up in the country, you may be speaking 2 or 3 different dialects.
Are the dialects similar, or?
In some regards, but most of them are very distinct, have their own words and enunciations. It's not like, you know, in the South here in the United States where, you know, it's just a different accent. It's different languages. A lot of influence in Spanish in their language there. So.
Was Imelda still there when you were there?
No, they had just been ousted when I got there, maybe a couple of years before. So the country was still kind of recovering from the after effects of the Marcos regime, and I actually spent some time in the area that is known as kind of the gathering spot for the criminal element during the Marcos era, and that was interesting. It's out near the pier in Manila, and very good people, very humble people, crowded city. Quite a contrast to Beaver, Utah, for sure. Quite a contrast. So it was an adjustment period for me, but I realized that you don't need things to make you happy. And there's so many people in the Philippines that don't have things, that are just content with life and find happiness. They find happiness, interestingly enough, by giving away what they do have. So that was a life lesson that I don't think I would have learned had I not gone there.
There's a famous line that mirrors that from the movie that Tom Hanks played in, you know. What's the name of it? I forgot. Senior
He
Moment.
said so many.
Well, the one where he... Anyway, he's sitting on the bench talking to this woman.
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Don't tell anybody I had a senior moment, but the famous line, the most famous line is the box of chocolate line.
Right.
But the best line in there, he's sitting on the bench talking, he looks at the woman and he says, you know, I've figured out anything you have more than you need is just showing off. So that goes right along with
That's right.
this thing. So what did you do after your mission?
So after my mission, I had always known, at least from the time I was in 9th grade in high school, that I wanted to become an architect. But at the time I started college, there wasn't an undergraduate degree in Utah anywhere. So my plan was to go to BYU, get an undergraduate degree, and then finish my master's at Utah. So I got into a degree at BYU, and while I was on my mission, that degree was abandoned. So I was kind of lost when I got home. I went back to BYU for a summer and a fall semester, and decided I didn't want to continue there. So I took some time off. I met my wife-to-be.
How did you meet her?
We lived in the same apartment complex in Provo, and I met her just a few weeks before I decided to leave BYU. So we started dating, and we dated for maybe 6 or 8 weeks and decided to get married, and we got married the following May. So that was in December, and this was in May. And in the meantime, I, in a roundabout way, found the job that I currently have with Naylor Wentworth Lund Architects, where I work. My parents' backyard neighbor was the superintendent of the school district in Beaver, and had been working with the company on some projects in Beaver. And he introduced me to the two principals, and so they hired me. And then during that interview, when I interviewed with them for the job, the one guy suggested that I go to the U, and unbeknownst to me, during this time, the University of Utah had developed an undergraduate program in architecture. So that was news to me. And so that very afternoon, I went and put my application into the U, and was accepted for the following fall. So I got my job, we got married in May, and then in the fall I started at the U in the undergraduate program in architecture. And so that was 1994, and then from 94 to 99, I was at the U and got my 2 degrees in architecture. In the meantime, we decided to start a family, so my 2 older kids were born while I was in school. In fact, my daughter, our second child, was born in February while I was doing my master's thesis. And so
At the University of Utah?
At the University of Utah. So we tried to make life as interesting as we could for ourselves, and interestingly, my daughter got sick with RSV about 6 weeks old, and so I was trying to finish up my thesis and get through with school, and she was in the hospital, and it was a real challenge. We had also decided to buy a home in Pleasant Grove during that time, and so we had really piled it on ourselves, and we got through it. I think we're better for it. So my wife and I now have been married for 21 years.
Is your daughter okay now?
Oh yeah, she got through it. She spent 4 or 5 days in the hospital, and they took really good care of her, and she's no worse for the wear.
How many children do you have?
3. So we had one more after those 2. He'll be 13 this coming July. So we've got the 2 boys and our daughter in the middle. Our oldest is on a mission in Tampa, Florida, right now.
Well, that's a foreign country too, isn't it?
Well, I think it is to him.
How long's he been out?
He's been out 10 months, a little more than 10 months, and he's doing really well.
Almost halfway through.
We're anxious to talk to him this week with Mother's Day coming up. So
That'll be nice. They let him talk to their mother.
they don't care about the dad apparently.
And that's probably wise.
It probably is.
So what brought you to St. George?
So as soon as I graduated from the university in 1999 with my master's degree, I was still with the firm that I hired on to in '94, and I continued working with them afterwards. And as it turned out, I was given management positions over projects in the area. I did a project in Beaver Dam, a school project. I did a project for the Washington County School District, the Dixie High School rebuild, and then a project up in Enterprise at the high school up there. So I was working here, I was down here a lot, and we have a small office here that's never been really much bigger than 5 or 6 people. And they were busy at the time. This was about 2003, 2004. And so myself and the office here jointly pressed the firm ownership to move me down, and so they did. And I've been here since then. We have a great office. We've got 5 or 6 people here. And
How did your wife feel about moving?
my wife's an adventurer. She'd like it if we moved every 5 or 6 years, so, or more frequently. So she was happy to.
Where was she raised?
She grew up in Central California.
And where would that be?
Hanford is the name of the town she grew up in. It's almost halfway between Fresno and Bakersfield. She likes to call herself a Navy brat, I guess. Her dad was a pilot in the Navy, and his last assignment was Lemoore Air Base in Central California. It's just a few miles from Hanford. And so we met in Provo because she'd come up there to
Go to school
and work and that kind of thing. She actually was done with school at the time, and she claims that she moved to Provo so she could find a husband. So I guess it worked for her. I guess it worked.
An old friend of mine said there are no coincidences, so
Apparently not.
that was Albert Einstein.
Yes. So she grew up. So you knew Albert, huh?
Yes.
So she grew up there, and it's a nice community.
I spent 22 years in California.
Where did you live?
Suburb of Hanford, Bakersfield.
So you know where Hanford is.
Yes, I do.
Not many people do. Somebody even mentioned, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they mentioned Visalia.
That's right there.
I said, oh, my wife grew up in Hanford. Oh, where's that?
Suburb of Visalia.
Suburb of Visalia, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, we were there for 22 years and still have a cabin up at Bass Lake near Yosemite.
I've never been to Yosemite.
Well, you're welcome to come up this summer.
I'll do that. I'll do that.
So, If you were giving advice to young people today, what would it be?
This has been on my mind a little bit lately, not coincidentally. I think what we need to do is love each other. We need to be more kind than we tend to be in this world these days. There seems to be just a lack of mutual understanding, mutual respect. And I think that's what I try to teach my kids is just be kind, just be loving, and let's try to give each other the benefit of the doubt a little bit.
Now, you're the president-elect of the St. George Rotary Club?
I am.
You live in St. George City?
I do. Out in the Bloomington Hills area is where I live. So I've been in the Rotary Club maybe just a couple of years fewer than I've actually lived here. I was introduced to the Rotary Club by Janine Holt, one of the people that I have a great deal of respect for. She's an amazing woman, and so she introduced me to Rotary, and I've been involved with the club since 2006 or 7, and it will be my privilege to become the president of the club for the next year, starting in July of this year.
So it's a one-year term?
It's a one-year term, and then we'll cycle somebody else in. It gives everybody a chance to be a leader and gain some leadership skills and feel what it's like to run an organization. So it'll be good for me.
What does the Rotary Club do? What is their goal?
Service, I think, is primarily the goal. It's a service club geared towards working professionals, people who are or have been important in their respective fields. And that's what I like about Rotary. It gives those of us who might otherwise be consumed by our own interests a chance to get out and serve. So for instance, our club has done a number of things around town. We've helped with the skate park. We helped put up the futsal courts that the city built. Years ago, we had a section of highway that we would clean regularly. One of our fun projects is international. We go to Guatemala every year. Our club raises funds and gathers funds from around different clubs in the state, and we buy the materials to build stoves in huts in the jungles of Guatemala. And
I would have thought today everybody would have at least a stove, but not the case. Huh?
not the case. These people that live out in the hills of these remote areas in Guatemala are living in makeshift huts that they have open fires inside the huts. We're told that the leading cause of death amongst women in Guatemala is smoke inhalation, and it's kind of goes back to the open fires inside these huts. Many children are hurt or killed because of falling into the fire, toddler age children. Because they're open fires, they consume so much wood that young girls are kept home from school to gather wood. So these stoves that our club helps to build are built in a way that they reduce the consumption of wood by 90%. So now the young girls can go to school. We vent the stove so the smoke problem goes away, and obviously it's enclosed so the young kids are able to be free of burns and that kind of thing. Injury.
Live a life they should be
Yeah.
living.
So it's a fun project to be involved with, and Rotary's a good avenue for me to exercise that desire to serve.
You said you were the second of 7 children?
That's correct.
Tell me about your siblings.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. There's a bit of a story there. My mom and dad got married quite young. My mom didn't graduate from high school initially, and I remember her getting her GED later on in my life. I was probably 4 or 5. So that was a good example to us. So education was very important to my parents. And in fact, they've both served on the school board in Beaver. So my oldest sibling is a physician. He works for the University of Utah system. The sister, just younger than me, owns her own tutoring practice in Salt Lake area. My brother, the next one, he's in business. He's a financial expert, does something with money or for the company he works for. The next one is a sister. She lives in California. She actually works in logistics for a company in Florida, so she works over the internet. My number 6 brother, Anthony, he is in hotel management, plus he works with my father at his accounting business in Beaver. So they've kind of teamed up in the last couple of years. Then my youngest sister is in human resources.
The dreaded human resource.
Yeah, so she lives in Salt Lake area. All of us have multiple degrees. I believe all of us have postgraduate degrees. And so, you know, my parents' emphasis on education has paid off. And it's a testament to me of the effect that good parents can have on children. I attribute the success that we've had educationally as their children to them.
Did your father have a degree in accounting?
He did. He got his degree in accounting from Southern Utah University. Back when it was, what was it back then? It's been so many names.
BNS, BAC, CSU.
CSU, I believe it was when he graduated.
You know how I know that?
I don't know how you know that.
I went to CSU.
You went to CSU.
BNS, Branch Normal School. BAC, Branch Agricultural College.
Right.
CSU, College of Southern Utah.
And then it was SUSC after that, right?
Southern Utah State College.
Yeah, and that's
Now SUU.
Yeah. So he graduated
You
from
know what
there.
year he graduated?
I believe it was 69
Okay.
when he graduated from SUU. Before I was born, so I will claim
Well,
ignorance
that was
on that.
before I was born. That's not true, but
So they're all very successful in their respective fields, and like I say, I attribute it to my parents' emphasis on education. Good examples to us, the service that they've rendered in the school board there. My dad was on for 12 years back when I was in high school. My mom is currently on the board there, and she will be finishing up her 3rd term here in a couple of years. So.
well, that's great. Tell me a little bit more about your personal family, your wife and your children. What do you do for fun?
We do for fun, we love to travel. So I happen to be on a committee of a national architectural registration board, and it affords me some opportunities to travel, and they go with me as frequently as they can. We've been to Washington D.C. together. We've been to let's see, Maine. They've traveled with me to Southern California. And then, of course, we try to make our own family trips, and that's probably the one thing that we love to do together. My younger son and I, we love to get out in the hills and hike around here, get out and discover the area and find what there is to find. So we've done that a little bit, and go camping. We spend a lot of time with our church. We're members of the LDS church, so we do a lot of that, you know, activities associated with the church. And we love to garden. My wife loves it more than I do, but she loves it because her mom insists that we do it. So,
Well, do her parents still live in California?
her parents don't live in California anymore. They shortly after we were married, maybe a couple of years, they bought a house in Provo. So all of their kids seemed to migrate this direction, and they were feeling a little left out. So they thought they should move up here. And
I saw a list once what constituted a true Utahn, and one of the categories was you have relatives in California that are looking to move back to Utah.
well, I'm a true Utahn then. So we do have chickens at our house. We like our chickens. Let's see, it's been probably 3 years.
Does the city code enforcement know about this?
The city allows it.
Okay.
The city code
You're
allows
safe
it.
then.
I put my wife off. She's the one that instigated the chickens, and I said, "Look, we can't do this. We can't have chickens in the city limits." And she insisted, and so I was going to prove her wrong. And so I pulled up the city code, and sure enough, someone somewhere along the lines decided it was acceptable to have chickens in the city limits. So we got chickens.
I guess they'd draw the line at a milk cow.
Yeah, no milk cows. I draw the line at no milk cows.
Well, good for you. Terrence, it's been nice talking with you.
Thank you.
Good
Been to
luck
be
on
here.
your coming year as the president of the St. George Rotary.
Thank you.
This is Lane Ronnow from the campus of Dixie State University with a story to tell. Thanks for being with us.